No matter where my exploration of French cities takes me, I always seem to be drawn back to Toulouse. It's nicknamed La Ville Rose, or the Pink City. It has a really good music and art scene, lots of green spaces, and a laid back vibe. It also has a plethora of great public transportation options. And though it's fighting for Lyon as the third largest city in France, it's much less costly than the other three cities of Paris, Lyon, and Marseille. So, could it be right for us? On first pass, it just felt too big. However, the more I explore it and the more I talk to people who live there and the more I see how the neighborhoods are laid out, the more I think it's not so big after all. So, maybe it is right for us. Come along with me for this. This is part one of my deep dive into Toulouse, France. Let's start with a brief history. Toulouse is in southwestern France's Occitanie region. It's one of Europe's oldest cities and was established well over 2,000 years ago. It was originally a settlement of a Celtic tribe. I'm not even going to try to pronounce their full name. Until, of course, Rome rolled in and overtook the place. This happened in the 2nd century BCE. That's before the Common Era. That's 200 years prior to our moving forward calendar. The Romans called it Tolosa, and they relocated its center to the banks of the Garonne River. Garonne? They moved it to the river in order to boost trade, of course, because river trade was the best way to get things moving and around. The Romans also connected the city with their major imperial roads that they had already built through the region. The city's distinctive pink terracotta bricks, that kind of architecture, comes from the local clay that was quarried, used to make all the buildings. So a lot of people, when they see Toulouse, they think, well, that seems like a newer city. It's all brick. It's ancient brick. And that type of pinky terracotta brick is what earned its nickname La Ville Rose, or the Pink City. In the 5th century, Toulouse became the capital of the Visigoth kingdom. And then it was later taken over by the Franks. And throughout the Middle Ages, it was the center of the county of Toulouse, which was a very powerful principality in what would become southern France. A few wars and crusades later, i.e., the ethnic cleansing of anybody not Roman Catholic, it eventually came under French control in the 13th century. The Catholic Dominican order, or St. Dominic's order, originated in Toulouse. In the Treaty of Paris in 1229, Toulouse formally submitted to the Crown of France, and the University of Toulouse was established. Yes, in 1229. It was at the time established kind of on the Parisian model of universities, and it was strongly sponsored by the Pope. He wanted it to be a means to dissolve all the heretic movement that was going on around. In other words, get rid of all the people who weren't Roman Catholic. However, in the long run, the establishment of that university cemented Toulouse as a cultural and educational hub, and it continues that tradition today. Toulouse prospered even more during the Renaissance through trade, mostly a blue dye they called pastel, and it was the only blue dye available in Europe at that time. Invention and innovation is what kept it going. Toulouse later became a modern hub of aerospace and aviation, including Airbus and early parts of the Aeropostale links. And I'm not talking about the store, I'm talking about actual air postal services. Today, Toulouse is the capital of the Occitanie region. It's famed for its culture of music and the arts. Lots of jazz and blues going on there too. It's also famous for its gastronomy and that warm brick glow reflecting off the water. Now, Toulouse sits on the Garonne River, which eventually flows into the Dordogne River, but also is the origination of the Canal du Midi, which was built, I can't remember the name of the canal that attaches the Canal du Midi to the Garonne River, and ran the canal all the way down through the south toward the Mediterranean. It goes through Carcassonne and down to the south coast. I'm pretty sure near Marseille, but I'm not sure about that at all. But it does extend the trade that they had all the way to the Mediterranean area. So there were some more wars and stuff going on between the 1200s and now. And, you know, we had the whole Renaissance period and the Napoleonic era. In fact, Toulouse was the scene in the very last Franco-British battles during the Napoleonic Wars, at least on French territory. During the 19th century, or the 1800s, as we know, Um, while the rest of the world was experiencing a big industrial revolution, Toulouse wasn't quite going that direction. The most important industries were the gunpowder factories, which helped to arm the people at war, and the tobacco factory. It wasn't till 1856 that the railway arrived in Toulouse and the city started becoming modernized. The ramparts were replaced by large, wide boulevards, and major avenues that led people to the city's center opened things up for people. In 1875, a very bad flood of the Garonne River devastated the entire Saint-Cyprien area of Toulouse, and over 1,000 homes were lost, and around 200 people died. It also destroyed every bridge in Toulouse except for the Pont Neuf. World War I was the beginning of Toulouse's aeronautics industry. In the 1920s and 1930s, the population of Toulouse increased by the arrivals of Italians and Spaniards fleeing the fascist regimes of their own countries. Then, in the early 1960s, French repatriates from Algeria came back and populated Toulouse as well. Now, since that time, Toulouse has become a technological hub for the aerospace industry, both for space flight and for the Airbus industry, as well as just flying in general. Of course, those things fueled economic and population growth. In 2022, the population of Toulouse proper was around 512,000. The whole entire metropolitan area, though, was about 1 million more than that. So there are over 1.5 million people in the Toulouse wider metropolitan area. So let's talk about neighborhoods. And this is where I really got to diving deep, because while I don't want to live in a major, loud, bustling, population dense, lots of nightlife going around to keep us from getting to bed at a decent hour, because I may be a night owl, but I don't want to listen to people partying outside my window into the wee hours. When I did the dive into studying the neighborhoods is when I realized there are plenty of places in Toulouse that are not going to feel overwhelming or claustrophobic or loud. But first, let's talk about one of those central districts called the Capitole District. Now, this is the heart of the city. Lots and lots of people want to immigrate and live there because it's the center of action. It has beautiful squares, lots and lots of shopping, tons of cafes and restaurants, and it also benefits from excellent access to public transportation services, which includes the metro. Living in this area can put you close to museums and life and things to explore and schools for those who have children, and also green spaces and lots of cultural venues. The heart of the city is centered around the Place du Capitole, which is Toulouse's iconic square. It has great access to metro lines A and B, lots of buses, and is just extremely central. Now, what about the vibe? Could we live in this neighborhood? The vibe there is very bustling, lots of history, lots of people, and it can be very busy and noisy. The good part is that it's a short walk from anywhere to get to boulangeries, markets, anything you basically need. But I think for more peaceful and long-term living, it might be a little too much for us and for our pets. We have a little dog that is very unhappy when there are loud, sharp noises going on. Another neighborhood is the Carmes neighborhood, C-A-R-M-E-S. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. Maybe it's Carmes. I don't know. Somebody correct me or tell me the pronunciation if you know it. It has kind of a classic French Quarter feel. Lots of local markets, lots of charming little side streets. It's one of the oldest central neighborhoods in Toulouse. So it's full of narrow little streets, pastel buildings, and the Place de Carmes market for people to get fresh produce. It is also very walkable and full of cafes and museums and boulangeries and markets. It also has a lot of shops and even some small artisan stores. The vibe there, I would say, is much more historic. Dog shake. And it's lively, but it also seems to be more neighborhood oriented. I'm not sure if that's true, but a lot of the expat boards say that it feels more like a neighborhood than a bustling touristy city center. So living there would be great if you love ancient architecture, if you love community-based markets, but it might still be a little too closed in for us. Now let's look at the Saint-Cyprien neighborhood. This neighborhood has a very bohemian vibe. It's a lot of artsy, culturally stuff. You can take a lot of riverside walks. It has a very relaxed culture, lots and lots of green spaces. It sits on the left bank of the Garonne River. It has several parks and gardens. And it has a mix of young, lively cafes, markets, and cultural venues. The vibe there feels kind of more like who I am on the inside, I guess. It's very artistic, very relaxed, laid back. People talk to you there. It just feels a little more chill than the city center does. And it's very good for taking walks along the river or biking. Lots of access to open spaces and a lot of local markets. I'm going to do deeper dives into the neighborhoods and places that we might decide to live in. Later for this first video, we're just going on the surface, and then I'll go more deeply into the places that I found were places that we would be able to live. Another neighborhood is Les Minimes. It has a quiet residential feel, good public transportation. Historically, the Minimes neighborhood was more working class, and now it's a little more residential with parks and local shops. I'm told it has good connectivity with Metro Line B. The vibe appears to be calm and residential, and really good for families who are staying long term. Lots of green spaces, the streets are quieter, it's not that touristed, and there's easy metro access. So another neighborhood is the Roseraie-Jolimont area of Toulouse. It is good for quiet residential life with lots of green spaces as well. It was also originally agricultural, but it's now kind of a calm residential district with lots of parks and community life. It is close to both the tram and the metro, and little neighborhood enclaves. The vibe is quiet, it's neighborhood centric, and it's not touristy. And from what some people who moved to that neighborhood have told me, it's good for peaceful living and local markets, but some parts of it can feel kind of suburban. Then we have, and I'm going to read, the Écoquartier de la Cartoucherie. Now, this is a modern neighborhood. It was built for sustainable living with plenty of green tracts and is considered a newer eco neighborhood. It has lots of pedestrian spaces, lots of green corridors. Even some of the buildings you can see just have green all over them on their terraces and their roofs. There is good tram access from this neighborhood, the T1 line. Now the vibe here is very contemporary. You're not living in a historical neighborhood. So it's contemporary buildings mixed with lots of nature. I'm not sure I mind that. Now this is for people who like newer development, saves on utility bills, but have parks and transport very close at hand. The final neighborhood that I want to look at almost feels like the neighborhood that I'm going to do a deeper dive into. I do want to look more at the Eco Quartier or the Eco Quarter because that just is fascinating to me. But the final neighborhood I want to look at is called Les Chalets. It has a quiet charm, but it's very close to the city center. It has a residential area with the Canal du Midi very close nearby. And honestly, I would rather live on the canal than I would want to live on the river. It's smaller, it's more intimate, lots of houseboats, and it just seems like a more tranquil sort of vibe. It's good for strolls or biking along the Canal du Midi. Both banks have paths and a calm way of life. And even though it's very close to the center, people who live there seem to be saying that it's got a real village kind of vibe. It's like the village inside of Toulouse. So to end this in a few minutes, and as I said, we'll go deeper into food culture and neighborhood culture and the vibe of the city as a whole and the diversity of the city as a whole in later videos. But I just wanted to kind of get a feel for the historical value of Toulouse and how we might feel living in a bigger city, but in a smaller enclave within the city. Tips for choosing a neighborhood were you to go live in Toulouse, and for us, because we don't want to have a car, we definitely have to have walkability to local markets. So central neighborhoods or quartiers like Carmes, Capitole, and Saint-Étienne, not Saint-Étienne, that's another place, Saint-Cyprien, are very walkable with boulangeries and markets all over the place. If you need good public transit, Toulouse is the game. They not only have tram system, they have a metro system, and they have city buses that run regularly, and they also even have a new Skyway tramway thing. I don't know if it goes into Toulouse proper, but wow. For safety and atmosphere, just like almost everywhere else in France, compared to the US, almost everywhere is safe. Now, I'm sure there are small places, especially when you get into the more crowded, touristed parts of the city, where you might find a little bit more crime or more pickpocketing, etc. Toulouse is generally very busy, but also pretty safe. Some outlying areas might be a little crunchier. So please, like we're doing, do your research before you move in. Some of the local forums I've been on do talk a little bit about spots with mixed reputations. So it's just good to scout it out. Now, we won't be able to scout it in person because we just won't be able to. We're going to have to move and just get right into it. So we will be, I'm sure, renting an Airbnb or something of that nature for a few months while we look and determine where we want to end up. One of the things that really gets me excited, and if you saw my Nantes video, you know that I love this organization called Les Halles de Machines. And in Nantes, they have a whole bunch of these little steampunky machines, including a big giant steampunk elephant that you can ride. And they centered it in Nantes, and with good reason, because it's the birthplace of Jules Verne. So kind of where steampunk originated from. I discovered and found out months and months ago, but more recently studied even more, that Toulouse also has an even larger hall de machines and a giant minotaur that snorts steam out of its nostrils and that up to 50 people can ride on. And their hall de machine is open almost every day, and I encourage you just to go look. I'll link the name of the organization's YouTube channel below, because it's just insanely creative and innovative. And sometimes they do big theatrical productions with their giant machines that go all over the city, so that it's not just confined to the few people who could possibly afford it. It's not like an amusement park or a place where you have to pay a lot of money to get in. It's open and available to everybody, and people can just go and look when they're open and see these tours and see these amazing machines, including machines that make music and just all kinds of fun, and some silly and some just amazing technologies. So I can't wait to talk about that in a future video. I'm trying really hard to find video footage that I'm allowed to use of the hall de machines, and also will just direct you to links where you can watch those videos yourself if I can't find any that I can use. I've checked out all of the photo stock and video stock sites, and none of them, even in their paid stuff, none of them seem to have videos available of that place. For my first exploration of Toulouse, I'm very excited, and I'm going to talk about a little bit about for next week, for Christmas Day, I'm going to talk about the Toulouse Christmas market, because it looks really cool, as do many of the Christmas markets all over France and Germany and Austria. But since it'll be Christmas, we're going to talk about something Christmassy where Toulouse is concerned. And on Tuesday, I'm also going to do US versus France Christmas celebrations. So next week is all about the holiday. And I hope that you hit that thumbs up button, and that you subscribe to my channel, and that and I'll see you on Saturday, when I'm going to do a live at 3 p.m. Eastern, so 9 p.m. French time. And I won't forget this time, because I'm scheduling it as soon as I post this video. So I'll see you soon. Bye.